Okay, so welcome to our review of UK Drag Race episode 3, 2, 3, 4.
Three.
I don't know where we're at.
Hi.
I can remember Bimini's outfit because it was like a blue, almost lacy. It also made it look like this kind of really ethereal kind of tree.
Oh yes, I remember it now. The lace thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I know what you mean by
Because
the
she had
blue
like
outfit.
little bits of like hair out here and stuff.
Yeah. This is really bad, but I think did we say on our last video that we would actually do this? And we would possibly. I mean, not intentionally. It's just the way the weekend fell. But basically see just how much we remembered. From
I think
UK Drag Race. As it turns out, literally fuck all.
That's not. There's not much more.
I'm currently having to Wikipedia
so we're looking it up to remind ourselves what we thought of shit. Because the only other thing we can talk about is the whole Bimini and Ginny Lemon thing.
I do have to say that's. I mean, before I look at all stuff, that's one thing. Bimini in the beginning, it obviously very much an East End queen.
Yeah,
came across as a bit
pretentious was my word.
Yeah, pretentious, a bit oi and Larry type stuff.
Well, I've got my own
up their own arse.
Yeah, I've got my own kind of eye roll at that whole scene and set because of just my own experiences when I used to sort of go out in London a long time ago. That doesn't seem to have changed. It's all about being alternative for alternative's sake.
Yes,
and I'm a bit like, really, Queen, and I,
which again,
awfully on my part, just projected that straight on Bimini.
I think as well, especially because I think we were having a conversation about this, and I think it reflects badly on us.
Yeah.
That we don't remember how Bimini introduced themselves. To that, we even had a conversation because obviously we know that Bimini came in very much as openly sort of non-binary.
I just said bipolar then.
But genuinely cannot remember from their introduction what
pronouns.
Yeah, whether they discuss what pronouns they prefer. So. Hence why I'm obviously using they/them pronouns at the moment. Just because
caution.
Yes, just because that for me that would be the default for anyone who identifies as non-binary. But Bimini was very open about being non-binary, and I think an element of that has probably kind of been washed over with the whole
you've not
East End pretentiousness.
Yeah, and also there's not Bimini hasn't had a lot of screen time. Yeah, really.
And that's absolutely on us.
Completely.
That's us
100%.
Because in this episode, you had Ginny Lemon, who has finally started coming out and started talking about their own perception of themselves. And again, very clearly is on a process of kind of going along the identifying as non-binary route. So has a conversation with Bimini, as again, an out, open, non-binary identifying drag queen. And just have to say that Bimini absolutely came across as a completely different individual in that. And again, very unusually for Drag Race full stop, absolutely sort of is a very good listener, does not try and hog the conversation, was very much there to kind of act as a sounding board for Ginny's own thought processes. And but basically in the same way that with US Drag Race, we watched an episode of Untucked at the beginning and completely did a 180 on our opinion of Candy Muse.
Which has gone back the other way, more or less.
Sadly. Absolutely this, sort of very much sort of full respect to sort of Bimini. Absolutely love how they came across, what they have to say and how they were there for some of the other... Basically, Bimini for me would be because I don't think the UK version does the miscongeniality that the US one does.
They do.
Because I don't think they've got.
What are they going to give them? Another badge?
Yeah, but would absolutely be a contender for a sort of miscongeniality just based on how well they supported.
It was just in a show that is generally not very grounded.
Oh, it's episode 3, by the way.
Is it? Okay. I mean, there's not much about living with a bunch of drag queens that's very grounded or very flat or very personable, because it's all about screaming. There's an awful lot of screaming in this show, let's be fair. And apparently there are whole deleted scenes that only dogs can hear. But it was just such a real moment that I think you don't see very often in the US show in the same way as a Brit would appreciate it because of the way our sensibilities are and the differences culturally between us and the US, which are granted nowhere near as wide apart as they were back in the days of back in the 80s when I was obsessed with being an American teenager when I was in high school and gutted that I wasn't an American teenager. You know,
it still is.
I wanted to be Ferris Bueller, damn it. I still do.
Also, hi Helen.
I wanted to carry my books around like this. Look, you waved at Helen, and what's happened? Hello.
You lifted the finger.
Yeah, but he wasn't touching it.
But neither was I.
Yeah, all right. Let's see how this goes now.
Hi.
Have I got to hold the Pringle can?
Possibly.
So I've got to see the rest of the review like this.
We really need to get a better hold of it.
We do.
Plus, we just put some weights in that so it actually...
Oh, we've got a full Pringle can in the cupboard.
I should be like that.
Welcome to the... See, you go to some YouTube channels and you get really lovely edited videos and graphics and little theme tunes. There's none of that here, and there never will be, I wouldn't have thought. Lazy, because back to me being lazy, I can't be fucking arsed.
How many friggin' Pringles have you eaten? This is not a full tin.
Yeah, I meant the orange one.
Oh, right, okay. I'll bring those anyway, because I might snack on them.
So, yeah, this is he leaning in while holding the can. I think...
You were talking about Ferris Bueller.
You know, real moments. So, like, in an American TV show, a real moment... See?
Ta-da!
I know it was a way. We just got to have a full Pringles can. So, bottom line is we've constantly got to have a full thing of Pringles in. So, if we eat them, we've got to buy another one.
Well, we can use that because I wasn't really a fan of that flavour.
Oh, okay. Did I buy those?
Yes.
Did I buy them for you? I don't like peri peri chicken, so I wouldn't have bought them for anyone else. The amount of times you said Pringles, do you think we get some money off them for this video?
Probably not.
No, I doubt it. Fuckers. But yeah, it was a, you know, because like, I can't do it. I'm pussyfooting and fannying about because I'm trying not to sound like a bit down on an American culture thing, but it's all a bit sort of like, your feelings are validated. It's all a bit Councillor Troy.
Is it all a bit show us your vulnerability?
Yeah, it's a bit show us your vulnerability. Whereas this was genuinely a vulnerable moment between two people that was nicely done and wasn't scripted and wasn't written and wasn't... but it's okay for you to feel angry.
And is also, I think, something that
Americans.
a lot of people are genuinely struggling with at the moment. Because...
Yeah, but you say... Yeah, but let me expand on that because I don't know where you're going with it. But when you say a lot of people are struggling... I don't just mean the people who are struggling with their identity, people who have no experience with this, and I've been in that boat and not quite got it myself initially, don't understand. Conversation I had with my father over WhatsApp 2 or 3 days ago, and he asked me, not from any other reason, and he was just curious to get my thoughts on it.
Oh, yes, I remember.
How many sexes do I think there are? And I instantly...
That's always a loaded question from your father.
Of course it fucking was. But I instantly went back with was however many there need to be. And he just doesn't quite understand it. So he sent me a link to a video he's watched. And to be fair, it was a fairly comprehensive feature from some TV show or other that then talked about, you know, validating sort of people's feelings inside and so it was... It wasn't detailed, but it kind of gave you a general overview to start thinking about gender and gender identity. So actually, for my dad, for you, good one. That was I was really impressed. You probably can't keep it up, but anyway, not given the conversation we had tonight about aliens, but so any moment now apparently. So. Yeah, I've lost myself now completely. So yeah, so basically,
About how people
how when you say people
even
struggling with
outside
it,
of
it's not. Yeah, it's something I think society doesn't understand. I think it's something that's difficult because so then you've got people who are in the situation. Then I could. It's not the same, right? But the only relatable thing I've got is looking back to when I was a teenager and understanding that my sexuality wasn't as straight as my family would have liked, but being in a situation where I didn't feel those people understood that I could possibly feel any different to them. That's the closest I can explain it, and that's the closest I can kind of pin to it. But by the time I was then 21, 22 and started exploring myself, the world had moved massively in that 6-7 year period, and lots of people over here had suddenly seemed to start reading Tales of the City, for example, in my social circle, and then that suddenly was a TV series, and there were more things happening. So actually, the wider people seem to have more of an understanding, and me coming out at 23 was probably easier than even someone 5 years before that would have found it. And bring it up to current date, you've got sort of national news articles supporting 14-year-olds who want to go to their prom in drag. Do you know what I mean? Wouldn't have had that in 1987. I can fucking assure you. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's just like the next level out now. So we've kind of, not entirely, but we've kind of got to a comfortable or semi-good place with people understanding gay, bisexual, and lesbian, and then like to a lesser degree, transgenders kind of become more open and more discussable and more acceptable in a larger society.
I think you possibly need to be careful at that point because, yes, I think it's safe to say that a lot of progress has been made for LGB.
More so than anything else, yes,
100%. I think anything trans is still dodgy.
There's loads of work. There's loads of places to go. I'm not saying for a minute there isn't a fuckload of work to be done. There clearly is, but
I also think within that, and again, this is not to detract from people who are dealing with trans identity issues.
No, not at all.
But it's very much sort of trans and non-binary, I think, identities are still the final sticking point for a lot of people. And again, that cuts across the sexual orientation spectrum, because we all know
they're not necessarily related.
Because we talk about things like internalized homophobia, about how there is a lot of transphobia among the LGB bit of the LGBTQ spectrum. All of that still applies. There are still an awful lot of people. It's like the older days where you weren't bi, you just hadn't picked a preference yet.
Or as I was once told, you're greedy.
Yeah.
Well, I am greedy, but not about that. Whole other thing.
So there is still a lot of issues that society as a whole is struggling to come to terms with. A lot of that, I think, fundamentally is around limitations of language. That we have never, I think, up until fairly recently, had to find ourselves in situations where we need language that moves away from a gender binary, a sexual binary. So, as with most things, language takes a lot longer to catch up with people's attitudes, and I think that's why, for me, it was really good to kind of see Ginny and Bimini having this conversation, because you are essentially, even allowing the fact that it's going to be absolutely edited to fuck, because it is television and it is RuPaul at the end of the day, with the best people in the world.
And also, they haven't got like 45 minutes to hand over, which would have been, and it would have been a lengthy conversation. I would have thought.
But to actually kind of see sort of two sort of individuals who are dealing with those very issues around their own identity,
but in very different places on that journey.
Yes, but to also kind of see the sort of the points of similarity, the points of commonality, as well as the differences and the divergences. Again, that's something that we need to see more of. Generally, I think it kind of cuts back to the big hoo-ha that was going on a few years back when Rue made those raised comments about if you're a trans woman or whatever, you can't really be a drag queen, and then obviously quite quickly walked those comments back, and because it blew up. But everyone is finding their way through these things with varying degrees of success, and at various points we're all going to fuck up, similar to what we were saying at the beginning about how we didn't really pay a huge amount of attention to Bimini's sort of statement of non-binariness at the beginning of the show, to the point if we kind of remember what Bimini said about sort of what preferred pronouns to use, that basically tells us that we were being dismissive because we had an idea of Bimini as being this particular type of person. So there are still those kind of conversations that need to be going on. We got to see one of those conversations, and that to me is what makes Drag Race important, because this is very much a show with the best of my life that goes out to a wider it's not just going out to the LGBTQ community.
Oh, it's huge now. It's grown massively. It's grown massively.
Yeah.
I think of the people I know that watch it, that even 10 years ago when Drag Race was actually going, I wouldn't have expected to watch it, and if I'd suggested they watch it, they probably would never have, and it's a responsibility, isn't it? And I think it's where obviously Rue's got Rue's position, but I think it's kind of where Michelle comes in, because Michelle's the one who seems to really get it.
Yes.
So Michelle is the if Rue's Pinocchio, Michelle's Jiminy Cricket. That's the best way I can put it.
Right? That's absolutely the best way to put it.
Because I think, and again,
I think some of it's a generational thing with Rue, because he is like our age and slightly older,
and Michelle's like 2 years older than me or something. But I think it is also Rue is that generation of gays who went clubbing and Rue's the same generation as club kids, that kind of thing. And I know how I have been in the past about certain things, and how sort of cliquey I've been when I first came out and first got excited about it and stuff like that. And the boys generally are worse for it.
And I think you do tend to be, especially in when you're kind of first coming out into this world yourself, you do tend to be quite protective, I think, of your own niche and identity, because it's something new to you, and it's something
and you've finally
I don't feel alone anymore.
And it's finding somewhere you suddenly feel comfortable and all the rest of it. So I think you do, and the trouble is you also then pick up bad habits.
Yes,
certainly I know I have in the past, and by that I don't mean drinking and drugs and all the rest of it that tends to get labelled with the scene. I mean
more the attitudinal stuff.
I mean bad belief habits. I remember slight offshoot, but I remember there was a large group of gay Doctor Who fans who used to hang around together. A lot of them are still very good friends of mine, but we got into that kind of, and I'll tell you what it is, it's the scene in Bed with Madonna where all the dancers sat around going it's that attitude, right? You know what I'm talking about. They rip it off brilliantly in French and Saunders.
I mean, I know the kind of attitude you're about, but obviously I've never watched In Bed with Madonna.
But there became this whole thing of, because we were all sort of boys. I wasn't properly out as bisexual at the time, and there came to this whole thing of referring to women as fish, and drag queens do. They talk about being fishy.
Yes, and you get that.
Which is, but there were girls in our social group, and it really hurt their feelings.
My first partner was Australian, and that's also a very Australian gay sort of scene thing. It's women are fish. Yeah,
and it comes from a quite nasty, derogatory, and also unfair thing. But I remember one of the girls kind of, they didn't say anything, and then kicking off. And it was only because a friend of mine kicked off. I took a step back and went, do you know, she's right. We shouldn't be saying this. It's not nice. So I sort of backed off, and then would kind of stick up for her a little bit. But I think it's that kind of, you get into a mentality that's not always healthy. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
When we started, however long ago it was. Do you know what? We've gone around so much, I can't remember half of what we said. And have we actually worked out the rest of the episode at all?
Yes. Basically,
can we just talk about who went home, because we're 20 minutes in?
Astina.
Who the hell's Astina? I can't
remember. Astina Mandela.
Oh, she had and she wasn't, but it wasn't, and it was
the ASOS jacket.
Yes, no, that was another week. Is this
the
the manga that wasn't? Was that last week?
Yes. Basically, everyone
she thought she was manga, and everyone else was ice skating.
Ice skater.
We didn't see the manga connection either, love. No. Sorry.
And she was up against Tia Coffee.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. But the thing about but again, this is the thing about Tia Coffee. She had that wonderful, oh so charming, because let's face it, she sounds quite posh, right?
Yes, she does.
She does, for a South Londoner, she sounds quite posh.
She's Wimbledon, South London.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, she's from Wimbledon. She's practically a fucking Womble. But Madame Chalet might be a look for you, honey. But just get someone else to sew it. That's all I'm saying.
But full props to her, because the bit I absolutely fucking love, and you even commented on it.
Yeah.
She didn't do what so many other queens do when they are being read to filth for their outfit. Is she basically, and I think it's quite a British thing, to be fair.
It was that humility.
It was absolute humility and self-deprecation. It's just like, and here I am just wearing an outfit, and yeah, I mean, I'm not, because I can't remember it, unfortunately, other than the fact that I laughed like a fucking
was it
drain.
green and yellow?
It was some kind of green and yellow thing.
I can't remember.
It wasn't great. Tia knew it wasn't great and didn't try to blag it as something great. And that fucking worked for me.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I think she just went, yeah, this could send me home.
Yeah.
I just got to go with, it's one thing, again, we always say, if you go wrong on stage, go wrong on stage.
Yeah.
Don't. That's the worst thing.
Fucking own it.
Just own it and just go for it. I've made a career out of it. So, I did love Tia Coffee. I did laugh a lot at her, at the self-deprecation on stage, just because it was like that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it, that's how you do it.
And she did, I think, a classic comedy, which was she did the 3-part punchline, which was it's boom, boom, and boom, and everyone hit, and just perfect.
Yeah. A gamble that paid off.
Yes,
for sure.
It absolutely did.
Absolutely.
And even it was Lawrence Chaney that won.
Of course, it was Lawrence Chaney that won, even though it wasn't. I can't remember who I thought should win, but I didn't think it should be Lawrence.
I thought possibly Ellie should have done better. Oh, no. Vanessa was another cracker with the green shimmery outfit and the red hair. I remember she did really well.
Okay, if you say so. I remember when Lawrence won thinking, oh, second or third maybe, but not winner. But that's all I can remember. So there we are. That's for an episode we can't remember. We've managed 23 minutes.
Oh,
granted,
not really talking about the episode.
Yeah, I think a good 19 minutes is just laying out the whole issues thing.
But again, as well, possibly one thing I would say, given that we have, in all fairness, been quite derogatory about Drag Race UK this season, in that it hasn't really, for the most part, grabbed us.
The thing is, I'm seeing other people talk about the fact that it's like one of the best series ever, and nobody should be going home.
And it's possible that we are just old queens who are jaded by it,
or possibly having 2 series at once to try and get through. It's too much.
But I think what this episode especially has really highlighted, which is why things like Drag Race are important, is what we were saying before, is that regardless of what we may think in terms of our personal enjoyment of it as a Drag Race show, it's the fact that it can still spark those kind of serious conversations that need to go on for 24 minutes. Yes, around things like gender identity, sex, sexual orientation, perspectives of drag, all of that sort of stuff. And we absolutely need to have more conversations about that, but also more shows that kind of spark those conversations. So for that alone, God bless you, Rue. God bless you, Bimini, and crack on, Ginny.